Welcome, I am Emir, and let's look back in hindsight. Again, today, we are taking a deep dive into Windows. I'm never going to stop doing that. When I first saw Windows 8, yup, we are not talking about Longhorn/Vista today. Sad. When I first saw the Metro apps in Windows 8 Developer Preview, I said, why do these look familiar? Very familiar. Deja vu? And I wasn't the only one. Activity centers. Until recently, I thought Microsoft never went beyond the broken mess they were in Windows. Or is it Microsoft, Neptune, build 5111, or 5111? Up to you, I guess. Microsoft promising much but failing to deliver. Sounds familiar? But surprisingly, a Windows Me, yes, I'm calling it that, Me, not M-E. Me is shorter. A Windows Me of all places, not Neptune, Me. A Windows Me build leaked recently, with the activity centers working. So, the time is ripe to talk about them again. What were activity centers? How did they work? Why were they cancelled? Was it because Microsoft could not deliver on this futuristic, well, in hindsight, futuristic interface? Why are activity centers on both ME, there I said it, ME, and Neptune? And may I add, also on early XP, codenamed Whistler. Was Microsoft simply pushing activity centers further and further down the line, kicking the can, so to speak, until it realized that it could not deliver? And finally, did Microsoft really copy activity centers for the Windows 8 Metro apps? That's a lot to unpack. So, let's get down to business. Activity centers were intended to be single window applications that made it easy to perform common tasks. How easy? The point is to not compare these centers with the future, but with the past. Compare the photo center with imaging for Windows and the timeless paint. Or if you want to go further, paintbrush. Paint. Now it's getting a new version. I am old. But not paintbrush old. Or compare the music center with the media player. Media player, not Windows Media Player. We'll get to that. Or compare the game center with the simple games folder. These activity centers were meant to be easy. So easy, in fact, that just one task would have its own page. For example, one page just for cropping a picture. No rotation, no fixed red eye. Those have their own separate pages. Each activity center would have had a home page containing links to specific tasks. Each link would lead to a secondary page for a specific task. Every activity center would have a navigation bar with quick links to tasks, and to go back to the previous page, not back to the future. Well, I think that's what happened with Activity Center, but I'm jumping ahead of myself. For the longest time, Neptune build 5111 or 5111 or up to you was the only build available to the public with activity centers. They were written in a combination of Win32 API and HTML. HTML, so you could open the pages of the centers on Internet Explorer. Or any browser, I guess. But Internet Explorer 5.5 on Neptune is required. Canon Beta Archive explained how the centers on Neptune work. Mars served as the framework, hence the name Mars Framework, for running the Activity Center web pages as framed applications. Mars uses the XML file in the folder of an Activity Center as the page's main layout. Mars shipped in Windows XP actually, as PCH shell DL. Is that how you're supposed to pronounce DL? DLL? That file name means PC Health Shell. Note, that's not just a fun fact, a trivia. Because PC Health is connected with the Help and Support Center, which, surprise, surprise, is an activity center that first shipped with Windows Me. So some activity centers did see the light of day. System Restore was another activity center that first shipped with Me. Media Player was redesigned to contain the features of the Music Center. For example, clicking radio no longer opens the browser. The radio page now loads inside the redesigned Media Player, which took on the name Windows Media Player 7, included in Windows Me. So, some activity centers actually ship. So it's not a WinFS situation. Not to mention that the activity centers in Neptune work flawlessly in Windows Me Beta 1. An older build of Me, 2358, which leaked recently, has the Start page, Photo Center, Music Center, Help Center, and System Restore. So what gives? The technology is already working. Why did Microsoft push the activity centers from Me to Neptune and then to XP Whistler before canceling them? According to Paul Thurrott, by the release of Windows Me Beta 1 by the fall of 1999, it was clear that the underlying activity center technology was not going to be far enough along to provide the needed HTML hooks into the more traditional Win32 interface. But just how far enough did Microsoft need the technology to be? Activity centers were already working fine in Me Beta 1. This isn't like, say, the Windows sidebar or WinFS in pre-reset Longhorn. I suspect Microsoft had another reason, but I don't want to speculate or guess. Or maybe the activity centers were not working in time for Beta 1, but by the time of Neptune, they were already working. It's just that the dependencies in ME had not yet been completely transplanted to Neptune. If I'm correct, Neptune was from December 1999, build 5111. Windows Me was from June of 1999. Wow, this is hard. Why do these builds have no dates on their build tags? Why do these builds have no build tags in the first place? To be honest, I don't know what point I was trying to make. My head hurts. Let's go talk about something else. At this point, I would have talked about when the idea for activity centers was conceived. I would have said that Microsoft did not initially plan activity centers for Neptune. See this 1998 document, an exhibit, evidence from the antitrust case, Coms versus Microsoft. I'm going to talk about that someday. Which shows that Microsoft wanted Neptune, spelled with a capital N and T. Get it? Microsoft wanted Neptune to replace both Windows 98 and Windows 2000. None of that Neptune to replace 98. Odyssey to replace 2000. But in that 1998 document, there was no mention of activity centers. Error 404. Activity centers not found. A year later, on April 7, 1999, Microsoft through Steve Ballmer, that guy from the high-strung Windows 1 ad, Reverse C, Nebraska, announced the existence of both me and what seems to be activity centers. So, I would have argued that Microsoft first planned activity centers for Windows Me. And then Microsoft announced on September 1999 that activity centers, quote, won't be a focus for Millennium, unquote. Therefore, I would have argued that Microsoft pushed activity centers to Neptune. That would explain the Windows Millennium branding. Millennium was the code name for Windows Me. Those files were from me. So, I would have said this was the timeline. The idea for Neptune to succeed 98 came first, and then came the idea for me to succeed 98. With me came the idea for activity centers, which worked in some me builds, and then the activity centers were pushed to Neptune. But then, this line from Paul Thurrott's Road to Gold of Windows Me threw me off, which implies that the Neptune team had begun work on activity centers when the Me team was just coming up with a list of features for Me, which implies that the idea for activity centers came before Me even existed. So I don't know anymore. My head already hurts. Now it's brain freeze. One thing is for sure. Neptune was cancelled and merged into Windows XP. Mars was postponed. Maybe. I'm not sure if this is the Mars framework from Neptune build 5.1.11. That Mars from build 5.1.1.1, of course, shipped with Whistler's RTM, Windows XP. One Whistler build contained the Neptune activity centers, build 2257. Otherwise, other Whistler builds, early XP builds, did not contain the activity centers unique to Neptune. Well, as I say, never say die, because not at least by name. Check out this email from February 22, 2000. Another exhibit, evidence from the antitrust case comes versus Microsoft. Quote, by team, here is a summary of our Whistler commitments. Shell team, Desktop v2. Desktop v2 replaces the current icon metaphor. Unquote. What does that mean? Something amazing, I guess? The same exhibit includes mentions of new Windows Start page. Check out Whistler build 2250 on system root /web/start page. Looks familiar? Twitter user Albacore found an entirely redesigned start page in build 2410. But this start page never went anywhere. I guess because it became the Windows XP start menu. Think about it. The starting places, a list of frequently used programs, and a list of my files and folders. The fact that no start menu appears when you click start while the start page is enabled in build 2410 says a lot. Also, doesn't this remind you of something? No, I'm not going to play the X-Files theme again. I can't play it 2 in a row. Because I'll just kill the meme. Or May. So why did Microsoft scrap activity centers? Was it because it could not deliver on this user interface until Windows 8? Did the fact that the activity centers were functional not matter? If you worked for Microsoft during that time, please comment on the YT page of this video. What do you think of activity centers? Do you think they were far ahead of their time? Or do you think they were just recycled in Windows 8? Were they recycled for Windows 8 in the first place? What do you think? Let me know also by commenting. Please like and share this video across social media. Subscribe and ring the bell. Check out my other videos. I do a lot on Windows. Support the show on PayPal, on Patreon, and on Brave Rewards on Brave Browser. Thank you to my sibling G-G Arts for my avatar. Check out and support her work by clicking the links in the description. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and take care.